It is such a pleasure for me to welcome you to our Seascape Gallery in the Channel Islands Maritime Museum, which is newly moved to the Channel Islands Harbor on Bluefin Circle and has been refurbished and reworked as a two-story, beautiful maritime museum with one of the most important maritime collections, certainly on the west coast of the United States, and if not in the world. The Nelson family, Mrs. Joyce Nelson, makes this collection available to us through the Nelson Maritime Trust Foundation, and we are grateful to her for her wonderful, insightful collection of work that tells the story about maritime art from the very beginning. The good news is, if you're studying art history, or you're coming to a museum, and this is maybe the first time that you've heard about maritime art, the great news is it begins in the 1600s or the 17th century with the Dutch. In that 100-year period, a tiny postage stamp coastal country, the Netherlands, experienced a great deal of economic and social and cultural growth within a 100-year period. And that figures very much into the type of artwork that they produced during that 100-year period known as the Golden Age. I would like to introduce you here to a painting that represents the newest and the latest ideas about painting landscape as a seascape that was devoted solely to the subject of ships, weather, sea, and sailors. In the early 1600s, Holland was a small country that was located at sea level because much of its land had been reclaimed from the sea. Because it was a flat land and it was low, they had to make the most out of their resources, which were their land and the sea. And in 1610, 1 in 10 Dutchmen was employed in the maritime trade. They were fishermen who worked assiduously to reap the benefits of the fish that were off their coast. They took that fish up to the Baltic states and they traded it for lumber. They brought the lumber back to their country, and they built wonderful, efficient ships. They ended up being the shipbuilders for many of the major states, countries of that time, both England and France. So what we have here is a painting by Villan Vandergelder, and he is an oil painter. His father did a great deal of studies of ship rigging and drawings of the landscape around off the coast of Holland. However, it took for the second generation in his family, Villan Vandergelder the younger, learned to oil paint, and he and his father shared a studio, and Villan Vandergelder the younger is the oil painter, so mostly we see the work from their studio attributed to him. I'd like you to notice that it's a very kind of sober picture as far as color. We have blue and browns, and just a touch of a little bit of red and some flags and some hats. The nice thing is when you mix brown with blue is you get beautiful grays. So with just that very limited palette of blue, brown, and white, the artist was able to create a whole scene with a wonderful sense of color and light, and then deep shadow and dark, which gives us a sense of drama. The three things that these painters, such as Villan Vandergelder the younger, developed was the idea of a very low horizon, a wonderful study of all of the atmospheric conditions, such as the clouds and the wind, and that effect on the ocean, and the effect of the light on the water and reflections, as well as a concern with the details of everyday people. This is a very egalitarian, in many ways, culture where the people who were doing the fishing, the people who were sailing the ships, were often the people who owned them. And they wanted very much to have a documented image of themselves at work in their own ships. And as a result of their very great success as shipbuilders in the 1600s, the Dutch also were great traders, and they took their ships all the way to Asia and brought back beautiful carpets and textiles and spices. And so this is a very kind of modest working picture of people in their everyday activities, but it is very realistic in a lot of details. We really see the kinds of things the men are doing in their boat. We see them rowing, we see them working on their ship, and we see the light of the time of day and the concern with how the wind is blowing or not blowing in this case. It's very calm. This is a calm, and the water is very smooth because there's very little wind. So this is a perfect example of the very beginning of the basics of maritime art. What we will see is that from the 1600s down to 2013, which is when we are discussing this theme, there has always been a tradition of realism with the people as they go about their daily activities, and a sense of real keen observation of the weather conditions and a recording of the realistic conditions of the effect of the light and the wind and the weather on the water. Thank you.